What's up, everybody? Jason Frausto for TennisUnleashed.net, and today I'm going to break down the two-hand backhand technique of Fabio Fognini and show you some things that you can copy from his technique to improve the spacing, consistency, and power of your two-hand backhand. Coming up. So it's no secret that Fabio Fognini has one of the most effortless two-handed backhands on the tour. This guy gets incredible power, not only on his two-handed backhand, but also on his forehand. It just looks like everything that he does on a tennis court, at least for him, is super effortless. How can you improve your two-handed backhand and take that easy power and apply it to your own game? I'm going to show you two things that Fognini does, as well as a lot of other players on tour that you can implement technically into your two-handed backhand to see instant improvement. So let's jump into the first stroke right now. We've got Fognini here on this side right near us, and he's in a practice session from 2019. And the first thing that we see as he makes the unit turn, and he kind of turns his body and his hips here, right? So you want to turn your body and your hips, is the first technical checkpoint. And what that is he gets the racket in the position that it's going to be in at contact with the ball as far as his space left to right. Okay, his left to right spacing here, the racket head is going to be off to his left, approximately where it's going to be when he actually makes contact with the ball. So he sets up the contact before he ever gets the racket back. This is genius, right? It's very natural for him. I'm sure he doesn't think about it. But for a lot of us common folks, you know, like myself, more of a recreational player, I can think about this and implement this into my own game. So again, as we go through this unit turn the hips, the shoulders, and the body, the racket head is off to the left side, approximately where you're gonna make contact with the ball. From here, we can see the hands, his hitting hands, his left hand and his right hand, come in close to the body. We're not too concerned about that right now. We're not really talking about that or covering it. We wanna talk about what the hands do next. And what the hands do next is at contact with the ball, both of the hands here should be to the left side of his body. Both of his hands are clearly on that side of his body. What I see with a lot of players that make mistakes doing this is their hands from this rear view, camera view like this, they'll be actually blocked by their body. You will not be able to see both of their hands. You may see one hand and not the other. And what that instantly tells me about the stroke is they're jammed on that two-handed backhand. You see this not only at the recreational level, but you also see this actually at the pro level with a lot of players. You'd be surprised. So again, here the hands come in, but at contact, technical checkpoint number 2, I want to see the hands to the hitting side of the body clearly at contact. Super important, and Fognini shows us that on this stroke right here. So let's go back for a second again. As we're turning our body and our hips, right? Take the racket head here, line it up approximately with where you're gonna make contact with the ball as you're going through this part of the swing. And then at contact with the ball, both hands should be on the hitting side of the body visibly and clearly. They should not be blocked by your body from this rear camera view. So if you're out there and you're filming your own strokes, this is super, super important. And again, the racket head here is approximately the same distance from his body that it was as he was preparing and going through the beginning of the stroke. So setting up the contact before you even get your racket quote unquote back, so that right here, it's approximately in a similar position, so you know you're not jamming yourself, okay? Let's move on now to a comparison of Fognini and Nadal and see if this holds true for Rafa as well. Okay, so here we've got Rafa on the right side at a practice session from Washington, D.C. in 2021, just a few months ago, and we've got Fognini over here on the left. So let's let this go through frame by frame, and let's look at the preparation. And voila, right? We see a similar thing with Nadal on the right here that we see with Fognini on the left, and that's that racket head being approximately in the position space-wise here, distance from his body to contact, that it is in the beginning of the stroke that it'll probably be in at actual contact with the ball. And we see the similar position with Fognini over here on the left. So as we go through the stroke, we see both players bring their hands in close to the body, right? That's very typical, very normal. And then from that position though, once we get to contact, we see the exact same thing with Nadal that we see with Fognini on the left. And that's those hands being very clearly and pushed away from the body on that hitting side of the body. So Rafa's a lefty, right? So we see the hands very clearly on the right side of his body, and for Fognini, it's on the left side. But again, so many players at a recreational level, even really good players, get consistently jammed by getting those hands hidden behind the body or in front of the body here where you can't see them at contact with the ball. But Nadal hits the exact same technical checkpoints that Fognini does on his stroke and keeps those hands clearly off to the right side of the body. So if you're struggling with your two-handed backhand power, you feel jammed, you feel like you're not getting enough topspin on the ball, a lot of this can be directly related to your spacing on the stroke, and people just aren't aware of it because they're not recording their forehands and backhands. But on your backhand here especially, so many people struggle with the two-hander. Make sure at contact, both hands are spaced away from your body at contact with the ball. You'll see a huge improvement on your two-handed backhand. It's made, personally for me, a huge difference on the stroke. And you might say, Jason, well, that's great. This applies in a practice situation, but does this actually apply, these checkpoints, in a match situation? Is this something that you can take and see in a match situation with a pro player? So let's move on to another example here. And here we've got a really good example. We've got Fognini on the left here, and then also on the right in a match and point situation. But what we also see on this one is really interesting, and that is that we see a high ball on the left and a low ball on the right. So let's just talk about some of those differences and point out if the checkpoints hold in a high ball situation versus a low ball situation. So the difference on a high ball versus a low ball, what we typically see, if our contact is going to be higher on a backhand or a forehand, we usually see the racket head will actually start higher in the preparation. It's still very clearly, right, off to his left, way away from the body like this, where he's approximately gonna make contact, but it's also quite a bit higher than it is over here on the right. So on the right, what do we see? We see the racket head here is off to his side, right off to the left, but it's also a lot lower if we look at where it is compared to his body. So it's much closer to his waist than it is over here, where it's closer to the chest. So big difference in terms of how high we're bringing it back, but we're still getting that common checkpoint of getting it way off to the left and lining it up approximately with where the contact's gonna take place. So as we come back from here, high ball on the left, extreme low ball on the right, right? It's a pretty crazy shot he's having to hit. But what does Fognini maintain on the right and the left? He maintains the ability to keep those hands at contact here to the left side of his body, even more so than the regular stroke over here on the left side of the screen, right? So the ability to maintain these checkpoints in any circumstance is really, really important. It doesn't matter that he's trying to do something a little bit different with the ball. He's maintaining these two technical checkpoints. So over here on the left side with the higher ball, we see the hands clearly away from the body to the left as well. So let's just back this up for a second again. We've got a match play situation and a point play situation. The difference here between a high ball and a low ball with these technical checkpoints is on the high ball, remember, the racket will start higher because your contact's gonna be higher. On the right over here, it's gonna start lower because your contact point's gonna be lower. So that's the technical difference between the two. Other than that, we're getting that racket head in a position where it's already lined up in the preparation with where you're actually gonna make contact here in a little bit. And that stays the same on both strokes. And then we see the hitting hands, right, are very clearly to the left side of the body at contact on the stroke. So if you ever feel like you're on the tennis court and you're just struggling with your power or your topspin on your two-handed backhand and you can't figure it out, or you feel like you don't have a lot of power and that you're jammed, remember these two key technical checkpoints that you can take from somebody like Fognini or Nadal or anybody else who has a great two-handed backhand and apply them to your tennis game. All right, so that wraps it up for this video on how to improve the spacing on your two-handed backhand. If you found this video helpful or you feel like you learned something today, make sure you smash that like and subscribe button. I'm Jason Frausto for TennisUnleashed.net. I'll see you next time.